Dobrodošli svi na BTŠ podcast. Sa vama je Riste,
a sa vama je i Raša. Brak, abortus i problemi u braku. Dragi slušalci, mislim da kada ste pročitali naslov, ušli ste samo zbog njega, jer u samom naslovu možete vidjeti da će danas biti zanimljivo, da će biti praktično i da ćete čuti stvari koje možda nikada niste čuli ili možda stvari o kojima mnogo razmišljate i zaista vjerujem da će biti na ohrabrenje mnogima od vas. Što se tiče mene, Igora ovdje koji je sa mnom, jedva čekamo da čujemo odgovore na pitanja koje će nam dati naš dragi profesor Dan Ramsey. Eto, na samom početku možemo postaviti pitanje kako se biblijsko shvatanje braka razlikuje od tipičnog braka u našem današnjem društvu. Gde su te glavne razlike?
When we understand marriage today as it is practiced almost all over the world universally, it has to do with what we call a contract. So two people sign a contract or go into a contractual relationship in which they are seeking one another's happiness and good. They are hoping that it will last for a long time. They're hoping for a good experience together. But because it's a contract, it's also possible, as we know, to end the marriage through divorce if one or the other is not happy. So the question is, is that a legitimate form of marriage as far as the Bible's concerned? It should never be based upon whether she doesn't cook the food right, or we're not sleeping together, or the house isn't clean, whatever, and so I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm done with her. That's a contractual marriage, and that's not a biblical marriage. A biblical marriage is what we call a covenant marriage, and a covenant marriage is where two people basically have a covenant between themselves and with God that they will be faithful to one another and that they will remain together for life. They're going to work on it. Even if there's difficulties or problems, they realize it's not really an option to just leave one another, but with God's strength stay together and raise the children and try to be a light to the next generation before God takes them home. So that's a major difference between a Christian view or a biblical view of marriage, which is to last for an entire lifetime, and a contractual marriage, which basically lasts as long as each of them are happy with one another or until they decide to end it.
Amen. To je zaista visok i biblijski pogled na brak i trebali bi da ga imamo, pogotovo ako jesmo u Hristu. I upravo to je ono što nas i drži ovakav pogled na brak. Međutim, eto, možemo možda malo razmišljati i o abortusu. Možda, Dan, da nam kažeš zbog čega su hrišćani toliko protiv abortusa, pa čak i u najranijoj fazi?
Abortion is one of the most serious problems we feel as evangelical Christians in the world today. We see many people who are using it basically to get out of the obligation of fathering or mothering a child that has been produced through a relationship. And we see people who are making what I would call excuses or using scientific logic or reasoning to say, well, we can get rid of the child up to this particular point because it's not a human. The question is, when does a fetus or an embryo become a human being? There's all kinds of scientific answers for that. But as far as Christians are concerned, we are dealing with something, an embryo, a human being that has been created through, and it is an embryo or a child that is made in the image of God. So we have absolutely no right to end the life of a human being made in the image of God just because it's not convenient for us or whatever. And so many people think, what's wrong with evangelical Christians when they get so upset about this particular practice? Because for us, putting a child or a fetus to death is putting a human being to death, and a human being is made in the image of God. And so therefore we strongly oppose it.
Tako i treba da bude. Tako i treba da bude. Nadam se da delimo svi koji slušamo mišljenje s ovim i da se možemo samo utvrditi u ovoj istini. Evo, treća stvar o kojoj bi mogli razmišljati jeste ona o kojoj, verujem, zanima sve vas, pogotovo vas koji ste u braku, duže možda, čak i oni možda koji su na početku braka, jer mnogi o braku razmišljaju kao o zajednici u kojoj ne bi trebalo biti konflikata između muža i žene, a opet činjenica jeste da često muž i žena, iako se vole, iako razumiju svrhu i poentu braka, shvate da se na dnevnom nivou mnogo puta ne mogu slagati jedni sa drugima. Odakle dolazi problem i zbog čega se to dešava? Den, pomozi nam, molim te.
One of the largest parts of our course at BTS on marriage and the family is spent talking about how a man and a woman relate to each other. And we often have the biblical foundations, which is good, but then you get into a relationship and you think, okay, I'm living with this person that I truly love, and yet for some reason we can't understand each other at times. I have husbands say to me, why are women so illogical? Well, they're not illogical. They have a way of thinking, as do the men. So why do Christian couples still have struggles in their marriage? The number one reason why, which I think is biblically based, and that is that we're sinners and we're selfish. So each one of us goes into a relationship where we try to win our spouse over to us, and we're excited about marriage, and we try to treat them well. And then somewhere down the road, we become ourselves again. And then we begin to think, what I want is more important than what this person wants. It's a selfishness, it can say. Or my wife might say to me, this is something that bothers me that you do. And my response might be, well, that's not true. I try to defend myself, right? It's just, I don't want to admit that I have a lot of wrong things in my life. That's my tendency as a human being. And that's one of probably the major reason why there's conflict in marriage, where we have to be able to realize what we've done and change that, and then also ask for forgiveness so that we can move ahead and do the right thing. But I would say that probably another 10 to 20% of the issues that we have in marriage is because of the differences between men and women. Women have different expectations than men. Women have the same needs as men, but they would rank them higher. One thing might be more important to a woman than to a man. So, for example, a woman, probably her highest need is affection from her husband. And affection meaning just showing that he shows her that he loves her. That's what she really loves and she enjoys. Men, oftentimes they'll say their highest need is sexual fulfillment. But what most men really, really are looking for is appreciation from their wives. They want affirmation from their wives. I know that's true of me. And so when you recognize what's important to your spouse, then you can begin to reach out and meet their needs accordingly. Her needs might be different than my needs, and my needs are different than her needs, but we're going to understand that, and when we are able to meet one another's needs, we can have a harmonious marriage.
Amen. Ne znam šta da dodati na ovo, osim da promišljamo i sprovedemo praksu. Den, hvala ti mnogo za ovako praktične savete koje su također utemeljene u istini Božje reči. Dragi slušalci, ubeđen sam i verujem da vam se svidelo, da ste uživali. Tako da vas ohrabrujem, ako jeste, podelite ovaj podcast sa drugima, sa vašim bližnjima, sa onima koji planiraju brak, sa onima koji su u braku, sa onima sa koje znate možda da imaju problem sa nekim od ovih pitanja. Puno vas pozdravljam i čujemo se sljedećeg podcasta. Pozdrav!
Bye. Thank you for having me.